Hello, Radiant Pearl guests. I'm so excited to have with me the lovely Lisa Kimrey. And I'm just going to take the time to share her bio. You'll get an idea of who we're speaking with today and the amazing value that she's going to bring the community and to you listeners. Lisa Kimrey is a speaker and the author of the Bible study, The Self-Care Impact, Motivation and Inspiration for Wellness. An RN for 28 years, Lisa writes about helping people care for their lives as they serve and care for others at mylifenurse.com. Lisa finds joy through helping people improve their self-care so they can help feel better and serve the Lord at their highest capacity. You can get a free 5-day Bible study, Be Well Through Worship, Motivation for Self-Care, and connect with Lisa on Pinterest and Facebook. So Lisa, I'm so glad that you are here with us, and I'm excited to really share and delve deep in the topic of self-care, because we know that is a neglected topic and really a mode of being for a lot of our ladies as well as our listeners. So I know you're going to really be able to help them through that today.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a
I'm
pleasure.
excited.
So I wanted to ask you, because you are really doing some amazing things just with your profession and now, putting together, of course, the study, the lessons that you have, as well as the book. I want to find out from you, how did you go about finding your purpose and what you're doing right now?
Well, the purpose really found me. So I'll just kind of share my story with you on that. I really thought my purpose was going to be leading. I really have always felt like a leader, but I thought my purpose and place was going to be in an administrative role or a leadership role in a hospital or a facility or a clinic or something like that. And I was very interested in climbing the ladder, and I went to school and I got a master's degree, and then I just was ready to, you know, just do whatever I could to get the next title and the next, great position. And so that really started in my 20s. And I was willing to do anything that I needed to do to get the job done. And you've heard of the can-do kid. I call myself the can't stop kid. So I was kind of like, go, 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 but I never stopped to rest. And it was starting to wear at me on the inside, but I didn't want to admit it to myself because self-care wasn't a buzzword back then, because that was, several years ago. But I didn't want to seem weak. And I thought self-care was for people who were weak and couldn't, just handle the day-to-day. So I just kept going and going and going. And then when I struggled with infertility for 7 years, and my daughter was born when I was 38. So I was a late age mom, but I didn't want to quit working. And then my daughter had colic for 9 months. So I had an executive level position where I was at the hospital, and I was trying to balance taking care of my daughter, and my husband had a job that worked funky hours, and I was going in at 6 a.m. sometimes and staying till 6 or 7 at night, and it was just really hard to balance all of that. At the same time, I was doing some coaching at work with patients who had chronic diseases like diabetes or high blood pressure and things like that, and I was telling them how to eat to be healthy, but I was living off of peanut M&Ms and Diet Coke because I was just stretching myself so thin. So I really, at that time, started to buy into self-care a little bit more because I was so exhausted trying to be a mom and a working mom. But I just didn't feel like I had the time, which I know now is not, what we should tell ourselves. And then finally, where I really found my purpose was We got to the point, my husband and I decided that my daughter wasn't thriving in childcare. And so we felt like I needed to be home. So I came home, and then I learned that being at home isn't all glamorous either, because the baby's there. And it's not all bonbons and, sitting up and reading magazines. And so I really didn't know how to do it very well. And I really got discouraged. And when I wasn't able to really make everything work the way I thought it was supposed to work, the way the magazines said, and all of that, I eventually got to a place where I didn't feel worthy to do self-care, because I felt like I didn't deserve it, in a way, as crazy as that sounds. So by that time I was discouraged, and I had gone through these 3 paths of, self-care thinking, and I was so lonely. I joined the gym, and I don't really like to exercise, but I didn't have any friends because all my friends were still at work, and I just at that time wasn't going to church on a regular basis. And so anyway, I went to the gym, and I was running, and I was prayer walking and running around the indoor track, and I prayed and prayed and prayed for a passion. And I think I did this for probably 6 or 7 months, 3 times a week. And, I'd start walking and running and praying, and then eventually crying around the track. And then one day God just gave me this vision, and the vision is my book and my website and what I'm doing. And I just knew my purpose. And that's kind of how it found me. I think I just had to really open myself up to him to hear it.
Wow. Lisa, when you were sharing your purpose, I love that. We had a guest previously who talked about the fact that she didn't go after her purpose. Her purpose found her. And from what you're telling me too, your purpose found you, but it was because of the crushing of what you were going through, and just really maybe the disappointment of life, not having the friends and all that you've had to go through to get to this place of finding your purpose. And then you actually mentioned the word passion, which is always the next thing I like to ask. So from what you've told me, your purpose and your passion really is intertwined. Did you want to say anything more about your passion?
Sure. I really, I went into nursing because I wanted to help people. A lot of nurses will say that, but as I went through my career, and I did lots of different things. I was at the bedside, and then I did a lot of coaching, and then I did some, the administrative things as well. But my very favorite part of nursing was when I was teaching patients how to take better care of themselves, because they usually had a new diagnosis. Not all, but a lot of the conditions and symptoms we develop are because we're not taking proper care of ourselves. Sometimes we have things where it's hereditary, or just happens, or we just get a virus or a bacteria, but a lot of times it has to do with our lifestyle. And so it just became a passion to really get to know the patients and understand them and know what motivates them and what doesn't, so that I could find that little tiny thing where I could get them encouraged and then inspired to just do one thing different to take better care of themselves. And I loved seeing them suddenly feel like they could do it and then succeed. And that's kind of my passion, is just helping people see that, because especially women don't just take care of themselves, they take care of their children and their family. And a lot of women work, and if they don't work outside of the home, they probably serve at something in their community or at their church. And so women really take care of others. But the old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I just feel like we're all walking around with empty cups.
Wow. I mean, the work that you do is so vital. I think, you pointed out the fact that women really are the nurturers, taking care of everyone. And what happens, when we neglect to take care of our own health, our own self, then everything else in a way could really shatter, because we've heard from time past how women are really the backbone
Right.
of society. So it does behoove us to really take that time to make sure the backbone is strong.
Right.
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 And so when you had that vision, I feel like it was also, intertwined. Some people think you have to have this big woo or just whoa moment in order to find your purpose and to know, hey, this is what I need to be doing. And it's amazing that you got such clarity
Mhm.
in really, you were seeking after the Lord. You had that prayer walk. I love that, so much answer is found in prayer, and people sometimes don't understand, you do have to travail. And I'm sure you are so familiar with that, having gone through what you went through even before you had your daughter, and having to wait on the Lord. And then also, the experiences after, and growing and raising up, your child and your family and all of that. And it's just, I want you to take us through that next journey of, yes, you've received that vision and you know your purpose, you have that passion, and you're making time. How did you incorporate even self-care during that moment of, now I'm pursuing it? Take us through your planning journey of really being able to even write that book while you have all these other amazing things going on.
Well, you are, you kind of gave me the goosebumps here because um, the Lord gave me this task while I was struggling with self-care. So, to be very honest, the first 2 years after I was given this vision, I was so afraid because it was such a pointed moment for me. And I felt like um, I had a new thought that I hadn't had before, which the phrase was strengthen my army. And that really scared me. It gave me a lot of pressure, I think. And so I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell anybody. And I became Jonah, actually, and I started doing some personal health coaching instead of going the way the Lord asked me to go. So I was the first couple of years, I the story isn't really glamorous, but it all helps me get to where I am today, of course.
Yes.
So I struggled with just the idea of how am I going to help these people if I struggled with it? And just little by little, by asking the Lord how to do that, I started to see how I can not only take better care of myself through the journey, but basically just tell other people what I did. And that's kind of what you're asking me now, but it took me a while to figure that out, that my story is relevant to helping other people, and the things I did can be things that other people can do as well. So I jokingly said the irony of trying to take care of yourself while writing a book about self-care. It's no joke, because it's not impossible to write a book, but it takes perseverance, and it takes time and challenging. There's barriers that you have to work through, of course. Honestly, I would say that I learned how to ask the Lord for help in every single thing I did. And it wasn't that he put guilt on me. I just felt more joy and peace when I did take better care of myself. And the verse I was led to is Romans 12, 12:1, and it's living as a holy sacrifice, as a way to honor and worship the Lord. And basically, I stepped into living that. So what does that look like? Well, for me, it was moving from eating those peanut M&Ms and Diet Coke for lunch to actually eating a good lunch, maybe some fresh fruits and vegetables and water or milk instead of Diet Coke, um, and then it eventually got to where I was able to, every choice I made that went into taking care of myself, whether it be something I ate or something that with exercise, which I still don't love to exercise. I envy people who love to exercise. I don't. I get out and walk, and I love to play with my family, kids, and sports and things like that. But just to get out and exercise isn't really fun for me. But your self-care is also about your social connections and your relationships and how you manage your money and your spiritual life and all of that put together. And so it became asking the Lord, what's the best choice for me here? And then listening for that guidance. And that was a long journey. It really took me 8 years to write my book. And probably it took the 7 years to write the first chapter and then the last year to finish the book.
Right.
So,
well, sometimes the hardest part is laying the foundation. And from what you're sharing with me, it's just incredible because the Lord took you through that journey first. And I believe the most powerful testimonies that can go forth and really make a dent and make a difference are the ones where people have really lived through it. And not only does it bring about that relatable factor, but it also brings about, that transparency, that sincerity that people really long for in order to see, what this person is saying and what they're sharing, I can really grab a hold of this because they really lived it and walked through it and they were able to get through on the other side. And if they can, I can too. Right. And that's so powerful. Lisa, I wanted to point out, you mentioned not too long ago that you needed to share your story. And I know everything happens for a reason. My husband and I just launched a small group with our church, and it's called, we were basing it off of also the concept of Your Story Matters. And I found that to be such a big theme now in, this podcast and everything that we've been doing, and even in the world today, living and going through life, and realizing that, hey, your story in this season and what you're doing also matters. It may seem mundane because we're going through maybe the same old routine and the same old, but I want you to tell me about some events and experiences, because your story really does matter, and the self-care journey that you've had to go through and live through and get through on the other side. I know we're always a work in progress, I know that, right? But we're so much further along, and from what you've told me, you're so much further along from where you started. And I know that's going to help someone that's listening to hear what specific events and experiences really shaped you into the person you are today, that has helped you to be now the author and the coach that you are, helping people to get through on the other side when it comes to self-care.
Okay. So, okay. I think part of the first event would be, I was raised on a farm in Iowa, and I live in Missouri, and I live in the city now, but there is a different lifestyle and a mindset to living on the farm. And I cherish the memories with my family that, it's really enjoying the simple things. And you kind of see that as a cliche in commercials and things like that. I wouldn't say that we were poor, but we definitely weren't rich. And there's there's just so many life lessons in seeing, having happiness and finding joy in what you have, and not longing for more, or, longing for what you don't have and things like that. And so I also feel like, um, you just learn how to make things work, and you don't have this thing that everybody else has, so I'm just going to make it work. And you pull up your bootstraps and dig in, and you just go to work and do the best you can. So I would say that would be one of the events, is just living on a farm. And the reason I started with that is because what I thought I wanted when I talked about climbing the ladder and maybe being the CEO of a company and all of these great things that I thought were the sign of success, really didn't bring me joy. And it wasn't until my husband and I decided that I needed to stay home with my daughter. And then my crazy life with all these deadlines and all the things I was trying to do, it just kind of all fell off. And then I think a lot of women experience this when they have children and they start raising their family, or they leave their job and their career and they come home and they kind of lose themselves and who they are. And I definitely went through that. And I struggled for probably 6 or 7 months trying to, what have I done? But what I found was, once I let go of that dream that was my human dream, but not my purpose, and once I just embraced what was in front of me and not what I didn't have, kind of go back to that farm life mentality, that simple life, our lives were so much more fulfilled. And that was also when I would say, I had a lot of struggle with, and that was why I didn't want to talk about the vision I had and what I felt God leading me to do, was because I struggled with comparison. And I just thought, little old me, I don't know how to tell people how to do this. I just, I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not trained enough. You name it, I said it to myself. However, when I finally slowed down and got back into that and just, allowed my daughter to love me and experience the joy of that simpler lifestyle, that's when I really heard God speak. And I discovered my purpose and my passion, and I experienced his response and his presence more than I ever had before. And I just really felt like the event that really got me there was when I came home with my daughter, and I didn't have all that noise in the background anymore, because I didn't know who I was. So I had to turn to him to really see myself through his eyes for the first time. And then the third part that I would probably say is, I think my daughter was around, not quite 2, when we found a church home. We were looking for a church, and when I went through that infertility struggle, that was probably another event. 7 years of waiting for a baby. I have a stepson who's 26, but I just knew that I wanted to have, another child in the family. And I remember being discouraged because we had tried some fertility drugs and we knew how far we wanted to go in this fertility journey. And we had gotten to the end of where we were going to go. And I was just crying and devastated, because I was no longer able to do anything. And I'm a doer, and I had to learn how to be instead of do. And so that was probably when I turned my life over to the Lord and fully trusting him. And I knew Jesus and I knew what he did for me, but I never really gave my life to him. And so giving my life to him, and then the journey of trying to balance the colicky baby and then coming home, that all happened in about 3 years. So when we did find the church, I connected with a small group, and there were women, yes, and there were women in there that were some my age, some a little bit older, some younger, and so they were all stay-at-home moms, and so they were doing Bible studies, and we took turns going to each other's homes. And I really thank those women for helping me see who I was, because that was where I was, trying to see myself for the first time through the Lord's eyes. And they really pulled a lot of confidence out of me and helped me stop comparing myself in the way that really stopped me from doing what the Lord called me to do.
Wow. Wow. How very beautiful, Lisa. While you were there just sharing those events and those experiences, it really ministered to me. And I know those who are listening, it's going to be ministering to them as well. It's really a powerful journey to go on, to believe and to know that, I'm a believer, right? I'm a Christian, and we subscribe. That's so easy to throw around that word and to have that sort of belief that, hey, I love the Lord. I have this relationship with him, but not realizing the depth of which we can totally surrender, and we don't realize it until we go through certain experiences and events in our lives. And sometimes in the moment, we're like, Lord, why me? I serve you. I'm doing all of these things. I think I'm doing the right thing. Why is it that it seems like things are not working out when the scripture says all things work together for the good? And, you got to the end of the rope. It's just so incredible to think that what you just said, being a doer sometimes really does work against you, because the Lord just wants you to be still and know that he is God, and, just leave it all in his hands. And we think we're doing that, and then we're in for a wide, rude awakening, that there's still more to learn and still more that we need to surrender.
Right.
And I mean, it's your testimony is so powerful. From what you've told me, your small group, you found community. And a lot of times people don't realize that we not only were created to create, as you created your book, you've created a life, with the power of the Holy Spirit, with the Lord, and, your family and your husband and all of those factors, you have been in the process of creating. But we're also created to connect.
Right.
And so we're missing that component a lot of times. When your book and that self-care journey, you took the time, which a lot of people are not taking the time to really be able to listen to the voice of the Lord, which you were able, what you've accomplished and what you're able to really bring forth to help other people. It's as a result of you listening, crying out to God first in prayer, and then listening. And then also what you said about the seeing yourself through the eyes of God. How beautiful is that? Not comparing yourself, but seeing. And so I want you to share with our listeners. You have so much wisdom, and you've already shared so many powerful food for thought that we need to really ponder on in our own lives, in our own journey. What would be some more final words that you would want to really encourage our listeners to take away today?
I think the biggest lesson that I have learned, and probably the hardest to learn, builds on letting go of the doing and to be. And that is to trust that whatever barrier is in front of you or whatever trial you're going through, it really is iron on iron to sharpen you, to get you ready for the wonderful calling that the Lord has for you. And I think it can be scary to think, you want me to do what? So often. And some of them are simple things. When, I don't know if you've ever been called to walk across the street and talk to a stranger or take somebody something out of the blue, and you think this is really crazy, and you try to talk yourself out of it. But those are just the little things, because if you do those things, you are always blessed while you bless this person that God has sent you to. I never, ever could have picked this purpose or path for me. I wouldn't have. I would call myself an introverted extrovert. So I wouldn't be a person who would speak on a stage or write my thoughts or things like that. But the obedience in doing so brings such blessing and joy. I just cannot express. Put yourself down, put your tools down, put whatever weapons that you're trying to fight this battle yourself because you think you should fight, just put them down and surrender, like you say, because the Lord already has your path laid out for you, and it's good. It's good. And that's probably, I don't know if I said that very clear, but just trust him.
Oh, you have. So Lisa, you were just talking about, you mentioned about the fulfillment that you found, and then your book, with it being a topic of self-care and the lessons that you do really pull out, I'm already receiving some healing words just talking with you, and encouragement to really make that a priority. How did you actually go about, you mentioned the first I believe you said 6 or how many years was just getting the first chapter. How did you wrap everything up? And tell us a little bit more about what you're going to find in the book and the lessons.
Okay. So the first chapter took me so long because I kept comparing myself to other people, and I kept refining the first chapter over and over. And so finally, I just picked a date and I said, on that date, this chapter's done. And so then I don't know if anyone else has ever written a book like this before. I hadn't written a book, but I was reading scripture, and there were scripture verses. When I read them, I knew they were important to the book, and I would write them down. And so just during my quiet time, and I was reading different books of the Bible, and just, I was all over doing a specific Bible study. But whenever I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up, or just something, I just knew. I don't know how I knew, but I would write it down. And so eventually I had a list of several of these verses, and I studied the verses and the context. And then I spent tons and tons of time in prayer. And what the book eventually became is a tool to help you see why self-care is important to the Lord. And it's more than because your body needs it. The way the Lord created us, especially after the fall in the Garden of Eden, we have to have self-care. We're not a machine that, we can go on forever. We have to have it. And eventually, if we don't take care of ourselves, we start to have some emotional issues. I mean, some of the first signs are irritability or headache or stomach ache, cynicism, and those are things that we kind of think they're just part of life. but those are signs that we need to take better care of ourselves.
Mm.
And a lot of times people wait until we have those physical symptoms, like maybe body aches or just, really being physically sick. But those emotional symptoms are the early warning signs. Those are our warning lights to take better care of ourselves.
Yes.
So what I learned by this is that our self-care is not just important to maintaining our body, it's also important to our purpose and our calling.
Mm.
And if we're not taking care of ourselves and we're experiencing those emotional symptoms or physical symptoms, we are not really paying attention to the people that God is sending us or putting in front of us because we're focused on ourselves.
Mm.
And so we miss out on those blessings of serving others and fulfilling our calling.
Wow.
And just sharing our spiritual gifts and being part of your church family and taking care of those people in your community.
Beautiful, Lisa. You know, for everyone who is listening and maybe watching this live, I know that this journey, it's not by coincidence that you're listening to this, and our eyes have been opened up to a deeper call to really take care of ourselves, self-care. And I want to encourage you really, dig deep in that topic with Lisa's book and with the resources that she's provided for us, but from God. And Lisa, I want to have you share ways that people can connect with you and also get the book.
Okay. So I am at mylifenurse.com, and I am on Facebook and Pinterest with that same name. And then finally, my book is on Amazon, and I'm new, and not a famous writer. So you may have to put my name into the search if you can't find the book by the title. But if you put Lisa Kimrey, you will find my book in Amazon.
Awesome. 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 Yay. Thank you so much, Lisa, for just taking the time out to share not only your wisdom, but also the resources. This is your profession, really is taking care. And you've done that for so many years, whether it was actually in facility or now as you're doing with your family and in the church setting. And now the whole world globally can get a hold and a piece of Lisa's wisdom. I love that. So
Thank
very
you.
appreciative of you
Thank
taking
you.
that time. Thank
I'm
you.
so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. God bless.